Hello and welcome to Learning and Technology. My name's Frank and I'm glad that you're here. In this video, I'm going to show you something that's really cool, a fun way to enhance the visual appeal of our team site. What we're going to do is we're going to actually go behind Teams to the SharePoint site that's driving a lot of the content onto Teams, and we're going to modify the default SharePoint website and then put that onto our team site. It might sound a little bit complex, but it's not that bad. Just have a look at the video, you'll see. I'm going to start off by talking about how SharePoint drives a lot of the team functionality, and I'm going to talk about how we can go in and use a Microsoft template to make web parts and bring those into the environment. If this video is useful, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this. Let's go have a look at how to do this. I think you'll find it quite interesting. In this video, I want to talk about three different aspects of building a website in the Teams environment. First, I want to do a brief overview of the architecture of Teams that's relevant to us. Then I want to talk about very basic web design concepts. What does it mean to build a website today? And then finally, I want to finish off with building a custom Teams website, which we will then put into our Teams environment. So let's have a look at this. The first thing we want to look at, and I'll put chapter markers in there so you can skip around down below if you'd like, but it may be good to review the architecture and the basic concepts. So when I look at Teams, if I open up the app on my computer or in a web browser, what I get is that Teams environment that we're familiar with. So there's a lot there. So I have my team and I can do all my general channels, my extra channels, all the things we do in Teams. But what's important to understand is that Teams actually lives as a unified front end to a lot of other parts of the Microsoft Office 365 world and the Microsoft Azure world and all of the things that I can put in there, including the web. So I showed you, for example, in a previous video, how I could take a website and I could snap that into Teams. The other thing is we can take users that we have that are part of Active Directory services, and they are available as members for my team. But one of the main things, and just quickly, I can have a lot of Office applications like Word and Excel, and I can put those into Teams. But one of the main things that Microsoft Teams is a front end for is something called Microsoft SharePoint. And Microsoft SharePoint is a great product. And really, for me, as a user, I've always enjoyed Microsoft SharePoint. You can create custom web interfaces. You could, do all sorts of cool things in SharePoint. You could have lists in SharePoint. You could have different parts in SharePoint that would allow different types of functionality for your team. But Microsoft Teams really, in my eyes, is the absolute most fantastic front end for all of these things, especially SharePoint. And behind every single Microsoft team is a SharePoint site supporting that team. And what does this mean for us? Well, it means that we want our users to have a nice unified user experience, but behind it, we can go in and create some very high-end customizations that will then appear on the team site. And one of those customizations is there is an associated website in SharePoint for that team. So I can make changes to that SharePoint. So if I make changes to that SharePoint website, those changes can then be snapped into Microsoft Teams and become part of what the user sees. So that's a very powerful thing. So understanding this architecture, that Teams is really a unified front end, a unified platform that takes advantage of everything around it, is sort of an important thing to understand when we're working with the Teams environment. So the same thing applies for when I'm building a website. If I'm building a website today, what I do is I have, this web page that I want to build. So I'll draw this out. So I have this web page that I want to build. And we're all used to websites that we go and visit on the internet, different commercial websites and such. But one way to think of the website is not so much as one page or a series of hyperlinks, but think of it more as a series of snap-ins. So for example, maybe I want to put a weather snap-in in here. So I want to have a weather snap-in. And then maybe I want to have some other snap-in in here that gives me current events. So I might have a list of current events in here. and maybe I want to have some other snap-in that gives me a graph of some sort. So it gives me some sort of graph of sales or student attendance or whatever it may be. And by thinking of these as separate components, I can rearrange them in whatever order looks best for me. So when I'm designing a web page, what I'm really doing is I'm putting a bunch of snap-ins into this interface, and then that can be, again, brought into Teams. What's really interesting about this is not only can I rearrange the snap-ins, but of course, if I have a weather, I want weather for my city. So I'm going to snap that into my city, because I'm going to put in my city name, and then it's going to display the weather for that city. So there's a configuration aspect to each of these elements where I put in information of, this list is a list of students. This chart here is a graph of, maybe it's a Power BI, or maybe it's, some sort of analytical service. Maybe it's a third-party data. But whatever these are, I put the snap-in into the page, and then I connect that snap-in to some sort of data source, and then it presents on my web page. So that's my basic design concepts. How do we do this in Teams? How do we build a custom website in Teams? Well, we understand these two concepts, and now we can go into the SharePoint site that lies behind Microsoft Teams. We're going to go into this SharePoint site. We're going to make all sorts of cool customizations to make our web page here, and then those will be snapped into Teams, and my team will just see a beautiful web page that appears as if it's magic. It's not really that magic, but let them think what they want. If they want to think it's magic, that's fine. Here I am in Teams, and so I'm in my tech class and general channel, and so this is a website that I created specifically, or a Teams site I created specifically for this. But underneath this Teams site is actually a SharePoint site. So if I click on the tech class, or I'll just click on the general channel, it doesn't matter where I click, but if I just go up to the ellipse here and go open in SharePoint, this will open that underlying SharePoint site that's behind here. So I go open in SharePoint, and so I was just on another screen, so I'll bring it over. So you can see it's opened up the tech class site. And now I'm just going to take my Teams site here, and we'll go ahead and dock it to the side and grab this fellow here. And so now you can see that I've got my website here, not my website, sorry, my SharePoint site, and I've got my Teams site. To prove that they're actually linked together, I'm going to upload a file into my SharePoint site. Just put an image of me working on some diagram there. So we got this image here. And if I go over to my Teams site into General, Files, you'll notice that the same image is located there. So they are in sync with each other. And I'll just go back. And on this one here, I'll actually go back as well. So now if I delete it from either, so I uploaded it here on the SharePoint site. Oh, didn't want to open it again. I want to go in and select it, and I want to delete it. So now I'm deleting it off my Teams site. I wonder if it'll delete off that SharePoint site. Well, of course it will, because that SharePoint site is just the back end to the Teams site. So now you see that they're linked with each other. Now, one of the things I can do here is if I click on the icon for the site, this here will be the URL for the website that's associated. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to copy that URL because I'm going to need it in a moment. There's a very cool service that Microsoft has called lookbook.microsoft.com. And what Lookbook allows you to do is use a number of different templates in order to quickly build a website that has some basic functionality. So I can build an organizational website, department, team, community, solution, school. I'll go into schools, and underneath schools, I can build a school homepage. I can build a staff homepage, or I can build class resources. Let's build a class one. So underneath here, it's going to say, welcome to, the class, whatever it might be. And it's just giving me an outline of what that class website will look like. You can see which features will be there, what web parts will be used, and what content will be used as sample content. To do this, I have to go in and add it to my tenant. You have to be a site administrator in order to do this. So depending on your school, They may or may not allow you to be the administrator, or you may need to get your IT department involved. I'm going to add it to the tenant. When I add it in, it's going to say, okay, great. What's the site URL? Remember that I copied it from when I went into my SharePoint site. So it's right here. I copied it from here, and now I paste it into here. It says it's going to be applied to your site. Do you want that? I'm going to say yes. It validates that URL. It says it's going to be put on there. I say okay. And then when I add it to the site, it's going to give me a notification that it's being added to my tenant. So you can see here, it's going to tell me what's being provisioned. I confirm that I'm happy with that, and it'll say that provisioning is started. You will get an email when that site is ready. And you can see that provisioning is currently in progress. And what I will do is I'll wait for that to occur. So provisioning's completed, and I've received an email that will give me a link to the new site. So here I am on the site. You can also just go back and hit refresh if you're already there. And you'll notice that it shows me that there's a section here, Welcome to Physical Science. Then there's a section here for class documents. There's a quick link section in here. There's a section for upcoming events. There's some class news and announcements with little tiles and some information. There's some learning video section in there with a bunch of links to videos. And then there's information about Ms. Berger, which is not me. So I want to edit this. So I want to go in here and I can look at the page details, but I can also add new information in here, like a new list, new document library, news post, whatever I want in here. But first, let's kind of clean this up a bit. I'm going to edit this. And now I can go in, and you'll notice I have these plus signs to each section here. So there's sort of two aspects to it. If I just click in here, I can say welcome, and I can just start editing. So I can say welcome to, what's this one called? The big project, tech class. Welcome to tech class. And then I can go in here and I can say, I can just start editing. This is an amazing tech class. And I can put all sorts of information. So you can just directly go in there and start editing. You can also move this around by moving this web part. So I can move this up or down or wherever I might want it to be. I can format the text. I can put a hyperlink in here. So I can say welcome to tech class, and then I can actually go in and hyperlink that out to my YouTube channel. I don't know why I would, but I can do that. And there's some other options in here. I can change the color of the fonts. I can insert tables in there, hyperlinks, all sorts of cool things that I can do just to format this one section. Additionally to formatting the section, I can also format it as a whole. So here you can go in and move it. Here you can go in and duplicate it if you like. Here you can go in and you can edit that section where I can do things like instead of making it one column, I can make it 2 columns or split it. I can change the background. If I don't like this background, I can change it. I can take out the background altogether. I have a lot of different options in terms of going here. So I'll close that down for now. Let's go to some other sections where we get a bit more variety. Let's say these quick links in here. So I can go into the quick links. I can add links in there. So there's some sample stuff in here that I can put in there. Or if I don't like any of these, I can go in if I want to modify the ones that are in there, which of course I would do off the template. So I can go into the quick links and I can just, still keep it called quick links, but I can go in and edit the Student Help Center. Notice that right now it goes off to a Microsoft support website, so I can change that. And maybe I'll change that to go off to another site. So I'll choose a site that I have here. So maybe I have a site that I've linked in my document library, or I can get it from a link. I can type in a link that I have in here. You can even have it send an email. I can put stock images in here. So you can see I've got a number of different ways that I can modify that. So I can modify this entire section here, which in my case here, I'm currently working on the quick links section. So you can see I can make changes there. I can go in and I can discard the changes. Again, I can save what I've been doing here as a draft. But let's go down and make actually some changes here on the class announcements. So if I click in here, I'm going to go ahead and edit the class announcements. We'll make it 2 columns instead of 1 column. Just because this is visually appealing. So I'll go in here. It's going to be 2 columns instead of 1 column. So now when I come back here, close the events here, I now have 2 columns for the events. You'll notice there's a second column here. So I can drag these, so make this over to this side. I can add new columns in, or new events in here. So maybe a new image, or you'll notice that there's a whole bunch of apps that also work in here. Maybe I'll do a countdown timer on that side. So I've got a countdown timer in here. You know, and I'll put time to the next test, because we want to create as much student anxiety as we can. So we'll go in, you must write a test. Don't do this, but we can go in there and we can change the values in here as well. So if I go in to edit this, you can see that I've got a date and time that it's going to count down to. Let's say I'm going to count down we're going to do our test tomorrow at, let's make it 10 a.m. We're going to have a test, and that test is going to be, let's say we're going to do it on Friday. The Friday test is at 10 a.m. and we're going to do hours and minutes and seconds. We're going to add that. And now you can see, we'll cancel that from there. So now you'll go ahead in there, close that. You can see I've got my countdown timer, time to the next test, 1 day, 21 hours, 7 minutes and 24, 3, 2. So that's just a countdown timer, and that's a class announcement in there. The point there being, though, is that I can go in, I can add sections, I can put a whole bunch of things in here. Now, this is just my home page. I can also edit my documents page in here. So here's where I could go in and I could add some additional documents. I could put in a new folder in here, a new Word document, a new link that goes out. My notebook, I can modify the notebook that's associated with this team. So I can go in here. Right now it's empty, but I can make modifications to the notebook in there. So you can see that there's a lot of different ways. Go back to the home page. So I can change this website to really make it what I want it to be. Now, it is important to make sure that as you're going through, it will save a draft by itself as an auto backup, but you do want to make sure that you go and republish it when you're done. I'm just going to show you how to add a new section in here as well, and I'm going to create a new news post. So underneath the news post, I'll say visual, and we'll go in here. This is the template I'm going to use. I'm going to create a post, and now you'll see my, I have to name it in here so I can share it. So say next, just shows me some information on adding the web parts and publish it. So the news post is, we now have a countdown timer, and we can go in and change any of the elements in here. It says who did it. I can change the picture here, so we can go and look at some stock images in here. It takes a little bit to get used to it, because, like any new skill, but if you go in there, you can change things, make it really nice, set the focal point here. Maybe I'll make the focal point, I don't know. That's not the best use of the image there, but I can go in and make those changes if I like to. You can go in and I'll post it. So now I've posted this new news article, and if I go there, you can see we now have a countdown timer with the focus being here. Okay, so that's just a brief outline of how I can make that page. Now that I've done that, I'm going to republish it. It's going to take all those changes into consideration. Now, I would spend more time making this a valid document. And now the question is, how can I put this onto my team site? So I'm now going to copy that URL, and I'm going to go into General, and all I need to do here is I go plus, and I'll choose the web app. So you can either find it on here, but I just type it in usually. So I go into web, I can put in a website, and I'll call it our class site. And now I'll paste the URL in here. So when you can see that when I log in with my account, and here's welcome to tech class, the amazing class, there's my announcement, and there's my countdown timer. So there it is. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe, and comment down below on how you're doing. Now, there is one challenge that can come up with this, and that is it could be that you have permission to create team sites and work in the team environment, but when you go and try to get into the SharePoint environment, you might be blocked by permissions. So you may have to consult with your IT department to get those permissions. Just something to bear in mind. But this video shows you how to do it, and you can always work with your IT department to show them what you're trying to do. So if you liked the video, hit like. If you want more like this, hit subscribe. And here are some other videos that might help you in your own remote teaching and learning.